Greetings, friends. Today we are focusing exclusively on refugee and immigration ministries.
Yeah, Brian, this is an issue, a topic that is near and dear to my heart and many of our hearts. And I know that you just wrapped up an important ecumenical gathering in Ohio, specifically related to refugee and asylum seekers. Can you talk a little bit about what you experienced there?
This was an event that was organized by Disciples, the UCC, and the Church of the Brethren. And then folks who actually attended the event were also Catholics and Mennonites. There were more than 50 of us who gathered at Camp Christian there in Ohio. And this was a pilot project that we were working on the first try and attempt at it. It went so well. We are hoping that other regions, other parts of the country are going to be open to being able to bring in something like this. So there were two tracks for this event. The first one was for directly impacted and immigrant-led congregations. And then the second one was for those accompanying congregations who want to be in solidarity with those who are marginalized and harmed by the current practices and policies. There were times then when those two tracks also intersected with each other and we were doing trainings together.
It just sounds so meaningful and impactful. And I do hope it gets replicated. I hope that other
Mhm.
regions are able to pick up this kind of format and do something similar. What were some of the key takeaways?
First and foremost, we are not alone in this work. To actually be in that kind of experience where you are surrounded by folks who are engaged in this work, coming to it from a faith community, was so powerful. We can't do this alone. The second one is that people are really hurting right now. And we need our care and compassion to be lived out loud in the world. Another key takeaway was that churches are responding in incredible and powerful ways. This is stuff like mutual aid networks. This is court accompaniment. This is public vigils that are being held, protests demanding that folks be released once they are detained. And finally, we just want to make sure that folks hear that no one is ready to throw in the towel here either. We've had some difficult days here. We've had some difficult times. And it was so inspiring to be with folks who said, yeah, that's true. And we're going to keep working and working even harder to be able to make these changes.
That's great, Brian. That's great. And now I know that Beloved Compassion Network had a key role in the event. Is that the organization that Dale and Shelley Suggs
It
is
is.
connected with?
Yep. Yep, that is the very same one. We wanted to have folks who could really help root us in the faith for this, because this wasn't just like a secular event or know your rights training that we were doing. This is a faithful response. And Dale and Shelley do such an amazing job helping to build up the skills and the tools, the spiritual reserves that we're going to need for this work.
Yeah,
Um,
and that's important for us to remember that it's grounded in faith and that there are several passages, several examples in the Bible. I just happen to have a Bible here with me, right here on my desk.
you have one that's even printed out.
It is indeed, not just on my phone. And I'm thinking of some of the key passages from the Bible that show witnesses of amazing people of faith helping persons from foreign land, like the story of Ruth and Boaz, where Boaz helped and showed kindness to Ruth, who was a widow, and allowed her to glean the fields. And the other story that most people are probably familiar with is the story of the Good Samaritan, where Jesus told a parable about the Good Samaritan, who himself was an outsider, to stop and help a Jewish person who had been robbed and beaten. Um, oh, there's the story of Joseph. Joseph went down into Egypt and he was a foreigner, and they welcomed him, even gave him a job and authority in Pharaoh's court. And then Joseph was able to bring his whole family into the land.
Mhm.
Sarah and Abraham, these are the pivotal foundational people of our faith. And Abraham was not only a wanderer himself, but he also provided hospitality to strangers whom God led his way. And just the entire ministry of Jesus. Jesus,
Yes.
Mary, and Joseph were foreigners who went down into Egypt to escape persecution. So the Bible is full of these stories, and it's helpful for us to just remember how important it is that our faith is shaped by immigrant stories. So, Brian, you want to tell us a little bit about who organized it and who brought the group together?
Yeah, this was a total team effort, and so lots of names to be able to shout out and folks to be able to give their flowers to. I want to make sure to lift up Grace Kozak from Week of Compassion, who was the key kind of organizer and had the seed for this idea that then flourished in these wonderful ways. So our planning team was me, it was Grace Kozak, it was Megan Bergert from the UCC's Office of Refugee and Migration Services, Julie, who's an educator and organizer from the Church of the Brethren, Alan Harris, who is the regional minister there at the Christian Church in Ohio, and his entire staff on the ground there at Camp Christian. And also just want to make sure that we shout out Esther Robles, C. Stonebreaker Martinez, Mark Alvarado, David Log Higgins, all of whom led different workshops and program pieces, as well as our lawyers on the ground who were there to meet with us.
Brian, I know the UCC played a key role, and interestingly enough, I think I sent this over to you. The UCC, I learned of this document that they published from a good friend of mine, Darrell Goodwin, who is the executive conference minister out in the New England area. The UCC has this 42-page document that helps to prepare churches to respond to immigration enforcement. Now, I just want to say it's an amazing document, 42 pages. It's a lot of information, and I would encourage people to check it out because there's some good stuff in there. But if you don't have time for reading a 42-page document, I'd like to lift out a few things that struck me about the document, and maybe Brian, you have some as well.
Yeah,
One of the things that I
absolutely.
saw, one of the things that I saw in the document is that, as you said before, that the work that we do is grounded in faith. The guide starts in talking about how we are to welcome immigrants, we're to welcome foreigners, and that this work is about human dignity and loving your neighbor.
Yeah, the document also spells out the ways that the context has changed for us here in the United States, the ways that immigration enforcement has expanded, and the ways that churches are no longer automatically considered, let's say, off limits like they had been previously.
Mhm. Another point that struck me, Brian, is that language matters. It
Yes.
helps to explain basic terms. We sometimes don't know what word to use, what phrase to use, but it emphasizes the importance of language, talking about undocumented immigrants, refugees, asylum seekers. So we're using respectful language instead of the derisive type of language that we often hear.
Yeah, it also explains what ICE is Immigrations and Customs Enforcement, so that folks can understand that this is a federal agency whose power and presence have grown significantly.
We forget in this day and age that rights actually matter.
Yes,
Warrants matter. That
yes.
the current practice of not using a judge-signed warrant and looking at ICE themselves being able to prepare warrants is a stark departure from what has been the custom, and we need to understand that about this situation.
Yeah, as well as the fact that churches have rights in the midst of this. And there are specific actions and things that churches can do to make those rights public and to let folks know that this is private space and that you've got to have one of those judge issued warrants in order to be able to come
Right.
in.
Right. And space matters. So the spaces are sacred spaces and the places where worship happens. We need to make sure that we protect that and that we emphasize the role that we have to play. Churches need to decide ahead of time who will speak or who will act or who will represent them. It's important to not just wait for it to happen, but to have a plan in place ahead of time.
That goes to as well being able to document and report what happens if you have one of these encounters on your campus and to have that plan in place too. Who's going to be documenting it and what are you going to do with that documentation?
Yeah, overall, Brian, is an excellent document. I
Yeah.
strongly advise people to check it out. It's not just about emergencies or reacting. The
Yes.
document is actually about ongoing support. It's about advocacy. It's about standing in solidarity with our immigrant neighbors and all whom Christ calls those whom
Yes.
we should be welcoming. The document will be in the comments section. We'd love to hear what you have to say about it.
If you're hearing about the event that we had in Ohio and you're thinking, I would love to do something like that in our region too, I want you to be able to reach out to me. My email is listed down in the comments, or Grace Kozak, whose email is also there. Yes, I got Grace's permission to be able to share it that way. And we look forward to being able to discern with you.
Thanks a lot. We will see you all next week.
Blessings and peace, everyone. Thank you all.